nothing. He's just strengthening the muscles and the ligaments, I guess, around. I'm not a doctor, as you know. So I'm not sure.
Interesting. From Russo Slacks. Oh, no groan. How about that?
Yeah.
You're so tolerant.
I talked at
You're so tolerant.
I talked at Wayzata High School this morning. Mm-hmm. This really cool journalism class, which, by the way, journalism class is a lot different than when I went to high school. I was telling them in the story. They walk me into this like television studio, and there's a green room and television.
John Millay on our prep show. We went down to do a show at Egan High School, and they have a better TV studio than most TV stations.
They have a control room. Yeah. And so I told them the story. I remember when I was in Randy Weddle, Mr. Weddle, my mass media teacher's class at Spanish River High School in Boca Raton in the early 90s. And I remember when we first got our first radio board, we were so excited, and we cleaned out his storage closet and turned it into our radio room. It was kind of like this. No soundproofing on the walls, echoes. And I remember us, like when we do a TV show, we would use his desk as the television desk with our little whatever type of VCR camera that we had there. And I was telling these kids these stories, and they were looking at me like I felt like, when I was young, that type of person. But the reason I brought this up is one of the questions, like, do you know who Russo Slacks is? I'm like, met him once. Have I ever told the story about Russo Slacks? About how, I don't know if Russo Slacks even knows this, if I've ever told the story. So Russo Slacks suddenly pops up, okay? And all of a sudden I notice that he's using pictures that are not they're clearly from my Facebook. So I start going through, and I realize I got 2,500 people I don't know, right? Because it was back, you just accept Wild fans.
Yep.
So what happened was, it started to piss me off that he was taking all these pictures off my Facebook. I mean, these private photos, right? So I started, one night I couldn't sleep, and from A to L, I started unfriending people I didn't know. And then my fingers started to hurt. So I decided the only other way to do this is, and this is going to sound horrible, and if you've been unfriended me on Facebook, you have only Russo Slacks to blame. I decided that on everybody's birthday, if I didn't know them, I would just unfriend them. That was my birthday present to them. And all of a sudden, it just doesn't stop. He's taking pictures off my Facebook. It turns out, first of all, his last name starts with an R. And it turns out that I have a cousin that I was confusing for him. So I went through this entire tedious process of getting rid of people that I didn't know. And it turns out that Russo Slacks is a Facebook friend that I actually don't know, but I thought that I did know, and I kept him.
Oh, that's awesome.
So just so you know, if you've been unfriended by me, that is why. And if you are one of the 800 people that are pending, he's the reason why I'm not accepting you.
Wow.
Yeah.
He has so much
I do
power.
have a facebook.com/Michael Russo hockey page that you're more than welcome to join. But sorry, Mr. Russo Slacks.
From Andrew Siljan, with the hiring of Evason as assistant coach, how does this potentially affect Brewdor long term? I guess we kind of answered that one already. From NH, what 25-year-old or younger 20-goal scorer and possession driver are the Wild going to trade Nino for?
I knew that was going to be the end of that question.
Yeah.
It just sarcastic end to the question.
Yes. From Kevin Gustafson, you have mentioned that Brent Flair most likely won't be retained. Who might Fenton bring in as his replacement?
That's a good question. Maybe Brent winds up impressing to the point that he stays. I will say David Poile, he's conniving, man. The second, I'm told, this is by sources, first of all, that Paul was not allowed in any of the last meetings that they had, like their amateur meetings that are going on now, pro meetings were going on during the playoffs, and Paul was not allowed in them. That's why Paul went to Florida sort of on vacation, is what I'm told, after he interviewed for the second time here. The second he took this job, all access to the Nashville was gone. And then on the day they announce, the day of the press conference, David Poile extends Jeff Kilty and gives him a promotion to Paul's job, promotes Scott Nickel. So these are guys that probably would have been people that Paul Fenton would have wanted to bring here, but what he did is he locked them up and gave them promotions. So, and then I hate to say it, I feel bad saying this, but then I was the reason why Dean Evison was given permission to come here is I think he was getting fired. I really do. I think Scott Nickel became the GM there and wanted to probably hire his own guy, maybe a Stan Julia or something like that. And, so I don't think they were going to keep Dean, but maybe I'm wrong. This is what I've been led to believe. And so that's why he's here.
Interesting stuff.
And again, that's nothing bad. I mean, this is the same type of thing. New GM wants to bring in his own guy.
From Alec, does reorganizing the personnel help or hurt the organization in the short or long run?
Well, I mean, it could take a step back. There's no doubt. I mean, as the 2 questions ago kind of alluded, I mean, you trade Nino, there's a chance you're taking a step back, depending on what you can get for him. I mean, you traded Dumba, there's a very good chance you're taking a step back. As I've said all along, we can all rip on this core for not being good enough to get them to where they want in the postseason, but they were good enough to get them into the playoffs 6 years in a row, which is not easy in this conference. I mean, as Anthony LaPanta and I had a huge debate yesterday on the radio station, there are teams that we all say are more talented than the Wild, but yet every other year they seem to miss the playoffs. So it is not easy to make the playoffs. But the second you take away a Nino, the second you take away a Coyle, the second you take away a Dumba or Brodin, you could potentially not make the playoffs. So this kid Jack that is the one that brought me to Wayzata today. I mean, he pointed it out. It's like every time Brodin's not in the Wild lineup, they seem to lose. I can't remember if this year that held up, but in years past, he's exactly right. And so all of a sudden, Brodin might have sucked in the postseason, but all of a sudden you take him out of the lineup, and that's you have no Brodin and Scandella, and you're saying, Soucy and Sealer are in those spots if you trade him, if you don't get a left shot D back. We'll see. One guy that I am interested to see, like, I think the San Jose Sharks are going to buy out Paul Martin. Do you maybe give him a 1-year flyer at a low $1.5 million and have just a tremendous citizen in the Wild locker room, kind of a Jordan Leopold type? Maybe that's something they do. But again, I mean, to expect him to replace Brodin when he couldn't even play in the playoffs down the stretch in San Jose, as controversial as I think that was out there, that could be tough. I mean, actually, he was scratched a lot in the second half at one point. Waivers.
From Mark, does Boudreau like Coyle at center?
I think he'd like him at second line center.
From John Paulson, do you think now that the Wild have their own practice facility, they will adapt having more open practices like that in other teams?
I hope
like
so. I think it's the right thing to do. I just think that I think these players, for such an incredible hockey market with such incredible passion, these players are so inaccessible to the fans. I mean, when do you ever see them? Unless you happen to by chance run into them at a restaurant or a Target, or you go to one of their paid fan signings at one of the local stores. I mean, you just don't see them. And I think it's created this incredible atmosphere in the playoffs in Washington, and this incredible atmosphere in Vegas. And I will say, and this could probably get me in trouble, but it is a public building. I mean, I don't think they're locking the doors. I know when I just walk in the side door during practice, it's open and there's nobody there looking at my credentials. So, I think it might be one of those things where they, you can just kind of show, and maybe they don't announce it's open, but this will probably get me a text from them.
Awesome.
Because I have learned recently they listen to the podcast.
Well, everybody listens to the podcast.
That is true. I'm amazed.
That's why
I wouldn't listen to this.
That's why more people should advertise with us. We reach everybody, I think. From Jake Warren, with Fenton in charge, will we likely see new scouts for European players? How do we choose scouts abroad? Are they former players, managers, etc.?
I would say the European scouts are definitely in trouble, because that Paul is going to have his own guys, although the European scout in Nashville, I guarantee, is going to be locked up because he was tremendous. Tremendously respected. But those guys in Europe with this organization, I mean, Pavel Ruta was in Florida when I was there, so he is Chuck Fletcher's guy, right? Pavel Ruta, who he looks like Alexei Yashin. I would think that he's in trouble. Rickard Pearson, I don't know. He's somebody that was hired late in the game. But my guess is those guys would certainly be in trouble. And then the local scouts, I mean, we'll see. It depends on how deep. They're the easiest guys to move because even if they were extended, their contracts, I mean, scouts don't make a ton of money. So I could see like the pro scouting staff being completely revamped in a lot of ways. I mean, Jamie Hislop, their guy in Calgary, was, I thought, supposed to retire last year. And next thing I know, he kept on seeing him. I think this is why I think there was a hole, is I think they made a deal with him. Please don't retire, but just, you don't have to go anywhere other than Western Canada. And so that could be, but I can see them doing that, but like, it's hard. If Guy Lapointe was right in front of you right now, it's hard to fire that guy. First of all, he's a Hall of Fame defenseman. And second of all, the guy's like, he's the most personable, like hilarious human being ever. It might be hard to just say you're gone. You might marginalize him like maybe Jack Ferraro was in LA, but I can see like local scouts, the amateur guys maybe losing their gig.
A couple more minutes in the Russo Show, a couple more good Twitter questions we want to get to. Thanks again. Check out twillmn.com, fixologyrepair.com, and Tony Hoagland, your State Farm in Champlin. You can Google Tony, Hoaglund. And I know that certainly the Twill and the Fixology Repair websites have lots of cool stuff on them for your perusing pleasure. From Derek G. Johnson, what are your thoughts on Maxi Domi? Domi and number 5 pick for Brodin, Ennis the number 24 pick. That's what he's proposing.
Absolutely no way that's happening.
From Tanner Romanowski.
Sorry, Derek. I know I like you, but actually, I'm almost saying that from a standpoint that I saw Craig Morgan, their beat writer, ripping on people that were saying that they would never trade Domi in a 5th for anything. So if you're getting this off like rumor sites, just be careful what you read this time of year. Yep. These people invent everything. Yep. That's the scary thing right now with the Wild, is that, because everybody allegedly is available. Now, this is like a gift that keeps on giving for the rumor guys. They just make crap up and then, leave the beat writers having to deal with the repercussions.
From Tanner Romanowski, what cigar would Michael recommend from Surdyk's?
Tanner was my cashier at Surdyk's the other day. I'm impressed that you could see that. I thought Tanner had a private, like usually
right
if you don't follow somebody with a private thing, you can't see him. Oh, so that's how it happens?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
I don't know how anything works, but he follows me, and his question showed up. And
Tanner is the person that I was at Astor Cafe once, and Anthony LaPanta is like, you got to follow this kid. He's a big fan. He goes to, I think he went to high school with Anthony's son. So I've just followed Tanner for probably 6 years, even though I've only met him twice for each 5 seconds.
Astor Cafe is great, by the way.
Yeah, oh my God, that
such
patio.
a great place. Love that place. And now I'm going to be stalking you there all summer.
I know.
Try to sound happier about it.
It's going to be exciting.
Pretty little city built on a hillside. Music in the bars and fire in the sky. We went to the beach and it was covered in ice. And I used to call it home. So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive a winner.